Welcome to SI Now Live. I'm Robin Lundberg. He's Ryan Aselta. Last night, the U.S. men's national team lost to Trinidad and Tobago 2-1, and when combined with results elsewhere, was eliminated from World Cup qualifying for the first time since 1986. To go over all the ramifications, we're joined from Trinidad by SI senior writer Grant Wall, and here in studio by Luis Miguel Echegaray, head of SI's Latino and Spanish content and Planeta Football. Grant, we'll start with you. Last night you tweeted it was the most surreal and embarrassing night in U.S. soccer history. In history?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, there's no need to sugarcoat this. It's hard to imagine a worse night in soccer terms for the U.S. I can't think of another more embarrassing night in the history of U.S. soccer. This was a U.S. team that only needed to win or tie against the last place Trinidad team, which had lost 6 straight hexagonal games, and the U.S. would have qualified for the World Cup. But I think also it's important to point out here that the U.S. this didn't just happen last night. This has been happening over the last 12 months. CONCACAF is the easiest region in the world to qualify from for the World Cup. The U.S. had a ton of margin for error, and they still screwed up and failed to qualify for Russia 2018. It is staggering, all of the things that had to come together for this to happen, for the U.S. to miss the World Cup. But that's exactly what happened here, and now the U.S. men are going to miss their first World Cup since 1986.
Yeah, Grant, hard to fathom that this actually did happen. You were at the game. You were with the team afterwards. How would you describe the mood of the U.S. players after the loss?
Completely shell-shocked after the game. Just about every player, Coach Bruce Arena, U.S. Soccer President Sunil Gulati, this was a team that expected to qualify for the World Cup last night, and they didn't. And they're not going to the playoff against Australia. They're not going anywhere. Now, what disappointed me was the response from U.S. Soccer President Sunil Gulati and U.S. Coach Bruce Arena when asked about what kind of changes need to take place now. And they basically said, not much. And that's insane to me. I mean, when this happens, this is a national soccer disaster. World Cups only come around once every 4 years. When you're the United States and you don't make a World Cup, it's a huge missed opportunity to create millions of new fans, as we've seen in the U.S. at every World Cup, men's and women's, that the U.S. has made the last several times. And to respond to this as if, oh, there's not much change that needs to take place. There's a tremendous amount of change that needs to take place in U.S. soccer. This is an opaque, insular federation. There is a presidential election coming in February. And Sunil Gulati, I think it's time to step aside, that somebody needs to come in who's a real person who can get things done, who can come in and change U.S. soccer, because there's so many things from youth development to changes in MLS to needing more soccer people at the top of U.S. soccer to enact the changes that need to take place to prevent something like this from ever happening again.
Luis, Grant talked a lot about how we got here. Michael Bradley called it the perfect storm of what happened last night. The Honduras win, the Panama win, the U.S. loss. But this happened, as Grant alluded to, over 12 months, 10 hexagonal games here. What went wrong overall with this U.S. team?
Well, to me, I want to touch upon one of the things that Grant said, which is, we definitely need change. It's unbelievable to me that the president, right, the head coach of the U.S. Soccer Federation is saying nothing much needs to happen. And I'm going to tell you what needs to happen. There is a big issue in this country when it comes to the relationship between the U.S. Soccer Federation and minority communities. Latinos and Black communities in this country who want to play, who are talented, who need a voice, don't have it because of the pay-to-play system. There is too much money that's being asked of these families. And that, to me, is a big issue. We have a country with resources, with money, with fields, with people that want to coach, that want to play. Right? Leagues internationally that are being watched in this country, right? The women's game is doing well, right? But what's happening is there is no connection between Latinos, Blacks, and the U.S. Soccer Federation, and that needs to change.
You know, Grant, when we're talking about this and you hear Luis say that, my snap judgment is that the talent gap is the biggest problem. And obviously, Luis touched on why that might be. Where do we go from here? How do we make up that talent gap so that our players are better?
Well, and largely this is a grassroots problem for the U.S. And so the U.S. needs to get better at producing talent at the grassroots level. I agree with Luis. The Latino community, the Black community are not represented. They're not connected to U.S. soccer, not nearly as much as they should be. And the rest of the world, soccer is a working class sport. In the U.S., soccer is a middle to upper middle class sport. That's got to change. But there's all sorts of things that have to happen. These are complex problems that don't have easy answers. And you look at a player like Christian Pulisic, who stands out for being such a talented young player, but he stands out because there's no one else like him right now in U.S. soccer. And so you look at his development. Playing futsal, getting technical skills at a young age was really important for Christian Pulisic and his development. Going to Borussia Dortmund was really important for his development. MLS needs to do better at developing players than they are right now. They're just not doing well enough. And so I think what we need is a lot of changes, but you need soccer people at the top. This isn't just about making money for U.S. soccer or organizing World Cups or doing things like that. This is not just a business thing. This is a soccer thing as well. This is a societal thing. And it needs to be improved across the board. To suggest there's no need for major changes, that's crazy.
Quick turnaround for you, Grant. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and we'll see where this goes from here. Thanks, man. And Luis, I know you have some more thoughts on the direction we go. Robin, it seems like they're unified in where this needs to start. It's at the ground level, the grassroots level. That seems to be the root of this problem here.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is it an incentive thing? Because the youth participation level, as you mentioned, it shouldn't be an exclusive club. You know, soccer is not a country club kind of sport. In fact, in many of the poorest countries, that's one of the first sports you play. Soccer and basketball probably the easiest to play. But is there a problem in the sense that the MLS is not akin to what the NBA is for basketball, or the NFL is for football, or Major League Baseball is for baseball?
Yes, that's correct. See, what happens in this country, just like Grant said, right, we're thinking primarily about money, right? So when you want to play academy soccer in this country, you have to pay, right, in one way or another. Right? But there's actually another issue which is more than just money, and it's cultural understanding, right? The U.S. Soccer Federation and youth development systems don't understand just what a Latino family or an African-American family that comes from underprivileged backgrounds, what they have to do in order to play soccer. We're talking thousands of dollars a year, right? Travel expenses, equipment, all these things that need to be done in order to play the game. That's ridiculous. So yes, the answer to your question is no, it's not the same, because imagine basketball, right? Saying to a 15-year-old kid, a 14-year-old kid who loves basketball, and you say to them, you know what, you have to pay for it if you want to be better, right? So we need a complete different type of understanding, and we need to culturally understand where these communities are coming from and what they need. And that's the only way that we can improve.
All right, Luis, there was news outside of the United States. Lost last night, South America qualifying. Argentina is going to World Cup. They started in 6th place, began the night. Messi, hat-trick. They beat Ecuador. They move on. Chile is out. Netherlands is out of the World Cup. Outside of the U.S. news, what was the biggest qualifying news that you saw last night?
So let's stay with South America, right? Because, well, one, I'm Peruvian, so, you know, I will touch up on that in 1 second. But yes, the first thing that we need to discuss is Lionel Messi. Yesterday, he single-handedly took his country to the World Cup. He went to Ecuador, a place that it's incredibly difficult to play in Quito's altitude, and they were 1-0 down in the first minute of the game. And Lionel Messi turned it on. He scored a hat-trick. He brought his team all the way up to qualify, and it was an incredible, incredible match. The second thing that we want to talk about is, yes, Chile, who won the Copa America, the Centenario, the Confederation Cup finalists. They are out. It's incredible. They went to Brazil. They just needed to make sure that they didn't lose, but even by a large margin, because they were depending on Peru's result, and they lost 3-0 away at Brazil without Arturo Vidal, one of the most, most important players. They didn't make it. That's incredible. And finally, yes, Peru, my country, made it to the playoffs, 5th spot. Peru hasn't made it to the World Cup since 1982. And Ricardo Gareca, who's the Argentinian coach, has taken this team all the way to 5th spot. They'll be playing New Zealand in the playoffs in the 2-leg in November.
All right.
Ryan, a question I'm sure many advertisers and TV executives are wondering, are you watching the World Cup without the United States?
I tell you, Fox is not happy with what happened last night, Robin, right? They paid $400 million for the broadcast rights to the World Cup, expecting to draw in the casual soccer fan for U.S. matches. I'm probably one of those people. Will I watch? I will watch some of the matches here and there. I'll watch as they get deeper into the tournament, quarterfinals, semifinals, final round. But there's no appointment television watching for me now in the World Cup without the U.S. U.S. plays, I would have gathered my kids, family, sat, watched that entire game. You're not getting me in now without them.
For me, it actually has little to no effect because I'm watching the World Cup to see this sport played at its highest level. And to keep it real, the U.S. isn't there. And whether they made it or not, I didn't expect them to make any run if they did get to the World Cup. So, you know, you hear about Lionel Messi and those guys. Those are the guys I want to watch, the countries that really pop off the screen. And that goes back to the root of this problem. My snap judgment, my blink judgment, if you will, to reference the Malcolm Gladwell book, is when I watch the U.S. play, the talent gap between that team and the rest of the world, at least the top flight teams, is jarring.
Right, but there's that sense of, we saw it with the women's national team, the nationalism that swelled that summer. You had people in the streets, they were setting up big screens in the middle of Manhattan to watch those games. I think we lose a bit of that. Yes, I'll watch Messi. If Italy gets through their playoff, I'm going to jump on that with my Italian heritage. But there's not that. I'm not marking my calendar on a Saturday to say the U.S. plays at 2 o'clock. I'm going to be planted in front of that television.
Yeah, I don't speak for everyone, and there's no doubt in my mind it will have an impact. It's the first time they haven't been there since 1986. What else was going on in 1986?
Well, on Tuesday, a letter from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell to all 32 teams was obtained by multiple media outlets. In the letter, Goodell addressed the ongoing national anthem protests in the league, saying the NFL wants to move past this controversy together with the players, and said, quote, like many of our fans, we believe that everyone should stand for the national anthem. We want to honor our flag and our country, and our fans expect that of us. Well, this morning, in response to the NFL, President Trump posted a victory tweet of sorts, saying it is about time that Roger Goodell of the NFL is finally demanding that all players stand for our great national anthem, respect our country. And just an hour ago, the NFL issued a follow-up statement saying, in part, commentary this morning about the commissioner's position on the anthem is not accurate. The NFL is doing the hard work of trying to move from protest to progress. Let's welcome in Robert Klemko now of the MMQB. And Robert, the NFL said the commentary from Trump is inaccurate. Is it in your mind?
I believe so. I think the NFL commissioner is trying to toe a very careful line here because he needs compromise from the players and he needs NFL ownership as well to be on board with what he's doing. And he's not, governing a group of 32 NFL owners who all agree with one another on this and are all on Trump's side, despite several of them having donated to Trump's campaign. I think that there's several key passages in Goodell's letter to teams, but the one that really sticks out to me is where he says that the protests and the controversy around them are a barrier to talking about real issues. And that's all well and good, but the memo doesn't discuss any of the quote-unquote real issues, which have been buried in this controversy since President Trump joined the fray here, which is these players' stance against police brutality and racial inequality in the United States.
You mentioned owners. One of them, Jerry Jones, and Trump apparently talked prior to the Cowboys owners' comments about players being benched if they don't stand for the anthem. And you mentioned them not talking about the specific issue in the statement. I've noticed the NFL statements haven't mentioned Trump by name or the president's specific derisive comments. How would you describe the association between Trump and the NFL currently?
Well, I think that the NFL management and owners realize that Trump is desperate for a win. And this has been a win for him of sorts because if the NFL protests continue, he gets to rile up the 30% of people who are still his devotees and say, look how bad football has become. If the protests stop, he gets to say that he saved football and saved ratings for Roger Goodell and the NFL and his pals who are owners. So I think the reason that he harps on this is because it's a win-win. It's an easy issue for him, as opposed to facing the other things that are challenging his administration right now.
Now, as part of those NFL statements, the league talked about teaming up with players to take part in community efforts. The commissioner joined Dolphins players in Miami on Tuesday, along with law enforcement officials and community leaders. The league says it has a plan to work with the players to promote positive change. Robert, what's the end game here? Will an NFL partnership with the players be enough to satisfy those who have been protesting?
Well, I think that you saw this issue sort of fading in a lot of ways before President Trump got involved. I mean, I think that his involvement riled up players who weren't otherwise with the cause, who otherwise felt that their ownership groups and their general managers were completely behind them in any kind of community initiatives that they wanted to be a part of. I think a lot of what the NFL has done in the past in terms of charity has been an effort to treat and ameliorate the symptoms of poverty and the symptoms of inequality, working with boys and girls clubs and things like that. But I think you'll see a shift now towards working with police groups on how things might or should change. I think that if President Trump hadn't gotten involved in this, then the NFL would have had to do a lot less to appease these players.
As you mentioned, I think you're correct. Now the topic kind of everywhere. Eminem had some words for Trump and support for Colin Kaepernick last night at the BET Cypher, drawing positive reaction from Kaepernick himself and LeBron James. NFL players seem to be getting support from a lot of different sources. Do you feel any resentment could be built up in that many might not feel they're getting the same from the league itself?
Yeah, I think so. I think players, it's an interesting time for players because they're starting to realize what kind of social media and personal clout they have. The NFL is one of the strictest leagues in terms of players marketing themselves as a brand. Marshawn Lynch gets fined for wearing beast mode gear in interviews. Players have to tape over their cleats if they don't have Nike logos. Whereas in basketball, footwear is an enormous part of the industry. I mean, there are websites devoted to the sneakers that players wear. So I think that all this support that these players are getting from outside sources in basketball and in hip hop is somewhat of a revelation to them. And it's empowering. And they're going to look for the same from teams.
Robert, really appreciate your insight on this. To discuss some of those issues and more, and thank you again, I had a chance to talk to the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, that being Russell Wilson. Joined now by Super Bowl champ and three-time Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, who joins us courtesy of Braun. Russell, I'm not sure anyone would describe it as the prettiest start to a season, but the Seahawks are 3-2, fresh off a win over division opponent in the Rams. How would you assess where the team is right now?
Well, I think we're doing a great job. We're in first place in the NFC West, which is huge. And we want to be able to continue to win football games. You always, our philosophy is that you always want to be progressing. You always want to just have this constant trajectory up and continue to build on what we're trying to do. We had a huge game last week, a huge win. We were down 10. We were down 10-0, and We went down the field and made some huge plays. Jimmy Graham had that touchdown, which was exciting to see. And then when we were able to go up and down the field and get another big field goal to go into the half at 10-10. And we were able to stop a high-scoring offense. Our defense played really, really well. And it was a tough matchup. And we were able to win on the road in L.A. on a hot day, which is a big win for us.
Now, I don't think people realize how much you personally were battling injuries last year. How are you feeling this season?
I feel great this season. Last year, man, ever since the first game on, all the way through the way through the playoffs, really, I was dinged up. But this year has been a great year. It's been feeling really good and just able to move around again and do all the things I need to do. And it's been an exciting year, and I'm looking forward to what we have. This journey is going to be a great journey. We guys making plays all over the field on offense and defense and special teams. So, and we're really tight knit. So it's a fun year to be playing some football.
Speaking of injuries, you got the Giants next. They're 0-5. Odell Beckham, Brandon Marshall are hurt. You guys will be switching coasts following a bye week. How do you avoid a classic trap game scenario?
Well, you think about those guys. First of all, I know Odell. I know Brandon too as well. I mean, those guys work extremely hard to have successful seasons and careers and everything else. And to see those guys go down, you never want to see that. Honestly, even though we have to play them, you want those guys to be out in the field because they make the game entertaining. They're very, very special players, and they put so much work in. And that's devastating to see that as another player. But going there, we know obviously they have Eli Manning as a great quarterback, who's won a lot of big games and matchups, and so we have to be on our stuff. And then you think about their defense; they got a lot of great players in their defense, and so we're taking this bye week and trying to look at our season so far, see how we can be better, see where we can grow, and see what we're doing really well, and then allow that to kind of catapult us into the rest of the season. And our mental focus is just go 1-0, to go on the road, to go to New York City, to go to New Jersey, and have a battle with a Giants team that's, I know, mentally tough. I know that they're a team that's never going to settle down. I mean, it's going to put the hard work in. So we have to be ready to roll and be ready to play because we know they're a good football team.
Usually Odell Beckham would be a big talking point, of course, not in the game. Somebody who does a little talking himself, Richard Sherman, he gave you credit for chasing down a defender after an interception. How much goes into being a successful quarterback aside from simply making the throws?
Well, there's a lot to it. I think that first of all, it's about the preparation. It's about the hard work that you put into it. That's where you really get that separation, I think, more than anything else. And then it's your love of the game. It's what are you willing to do for your teammates and for the game, and what are you willing to do to win? And and I think that at all costs, I love playing the game of football, no matter what the circumstances are. I want to be on the field and help our football team win. And the past five years, going on 6 now, we've won a lot of football games. We've won so many games and been fortunate to win a Super Bowl, go to 2 Super Bowls, and do a lot of special things in the playoffs. But that's the past. We're focused on right now. We're focused on the moment, and we're focused on being as good as we can be, and me continue to grow, me personally, and also our football team, each person individually. And so we're pushing each other. We're competing at the highest level to try to be great and to try to win something that's very difficult to win. And to do that, you have to love the game, and that's what it takes. And talking about that one play. It took me back to my high school days where I had to play some corner and try to make some plays and make some tackles. So hopefully I don't have to do that ever again.
Well, you're a pretty good athlete. I think you might be able to do it. Now, Richard Sherman, he also said he was proud of you and said you had a bit of an epiphany after hearing Trump's comments about players kneeling a couple of weeks ago. What was that epiphany he described?
Well, the biggest thing right now, first of all, I think that's really, really imperative is in this troubling time, it's really about love. It's really about empathy. It's really about, my kids. It's about your kids. It's about everybody's kids, and how do we want our kids to live one day? And so, racism is a real thing. We can't ignore it. We can't just look to the left or look to the right and say like it's not there. We have to be able to communicate about it and do a better job of loving people. And I always think about it. When I go into the huddle, there's 10 other guys in the huddle. And every time I step into that huddle, there's guys from different races. There's guys from different socioeconomic statuses. There's guys from different religions and faiths. but we're ultimately there for one common goal, and that's to win. That's to help each other. And I think that's the way that we need to look at life too. This is the way that we need to affect our communities. Is can we look at each other and understand that one day my kids and your kids may be going to the same school together, maybe in the same job opportunity, or maybe in the same location together. And I want those kids to have the same good, equal opportunities and really caring for one another. And that's the true heart of the matter. The true heart of the matter is love. The true heart of the matter is empathy. And how can we love better? How can I love better? How can you love better? And if we can do that and look at each other and try to be accountable for loving better, then that's how we make this world a better place.
All right, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Braun. I understand you went to the University of Washington as an undercover security guard.
Really, really fun. I actually just posted on my Instagram, and you can kind of see some of the behind the scenes stuff on my Trace Me account too, my Trace Me app. But it's really, really cool just to be a part of that. We went to University of Washington. Me and my security guy. We dressed up as security officers, campus security. And when we saw a kid with an extra long beard or not groomed up, or a guy was walking, his girl to class or whatever, we made sure that we pulled them over and made sure that we gave them a fresh new multi-dimensional groomer. Something that I use too to constantly keep my face ready to roll. Sometimes I like the baby face and having a clean, fresh shave, but every once in a while too. Sierra especially, she likes the facial hair, so I got to make sure that I appease her too as well. So, but it was pretty funny just to see some of the kids' reactions and to see their laughter and to think, is that Russell? Is that so being at University of Washington, first of all, for me is always interesting because I love Seattle, but everybody says that's the real UW in Seattle, and I beg to differ because University of Wisconsin I think is the original UW, and so when I think about those two, hopefully I get to see a cool college football battle showdown here between University of Wisconsin and University of Washington, two really good football teams.
Appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.
The NBA tips off earlier than ever this year. After the wildest offseason in history, here's everything you need to know to get ready. Opening night begins with the Celtics at Cavs, or Kyrie at LeBron. Boston and Cleveland have new looks featuring old friends, and should once again compete for the East. In all, 15 All-Stars switched squads over the summer. There's a super team in OKC, with one superstar committed to stay, and a dashing duo for D'Antoni. The T-Wolves are hoping to make the jump. The Lakers are hoping for some magic. And the 76ers are hoping the process finally pays off. Want some answers? Well, we've got some questions. Will Giannis leap to the level of MVP? And just how good will Denver's front court be? Sans Melo and Phil, can Kristaps fix the Knicks? And could Dwight Howard and Charlotte be back to old tricks? What to expect from Boogie and the Brow, Season 2? And could the Blake-led Clips be better too? Which rookie will get the most love? And will Damian Lillard finally stop getting snubbed? Some perennial playoff squads are staying the course, while others are pressing reset. And yet, of course, none of this might matter, because the Warriors are still the Warriors, even with a little more swagger.
Now, a lot to digest there. Looking back, what do you think was the most important move of the NBA offseason?
I'm going to go with the Paul George trade to the Thunder. I think the effect of it is very wide-reaching. First of all, it helped the extension signing of Russell Westbrook. Bottom line, it played a factor in showing him that they want to win. I think it's going to help Russell Westbrook. He's just going to be a better ball player with someone like George with him. I think it played a part in Carmelo Anthony waiving his no trade to go to Oklahoma City to join these guys. And then the last effect, obviously, is it turns into more of a four-horse race in the West, not a three between Golden State, San Antonio, and Houston. Oklahoma City clearly a player, which could be a lot of fun. 4 teams going at it down the stretch in the Western Conference. Be very, very interesting.
It's very tough to come up with one, but if I'm picking one, it's going to be the Kyrie Irving trade because of the ramifications both in the now and perhaps historically. Irving goes to Boston, the other top team in the East with Cleveland. So does the balance of power in the East shift? what becomes of Kyrie now that he's the man? You know, it was sort of define his career. Then you still got LeBron and the Cavs. Can he go back to the finals again without Kyrie? Could they actually get better with the depth, even if they don't have his scoring there? So when you think about the sort of tentacles of that deal and all the places it affects, I'm going with that trade.
And the tentacle with the question mark of Isaiah Thomas. When, if he'll be ready with the hip injury, how much of a role he's going to come back, and how healthy he's going to be. I think it's fair to say, Robin, both of them were big deals this offseason. It was a huge offseason in general. For the
we didn't even say Chris Paul, right?
Right, we didn't even talk about that. All right, that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of SI Now. We'll be back with you again tomorrow, Thursday, 10:30 Eastern. Until then, be sure to stick with SI.com for all the latest sports news. And don't forget to follow us all on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We'll see you tomorrow.